All right, welcome back to another edition of the Speak Truth Sports podcast. I am Bert, and I am joined by. And today we're going to go over a bunch of stuff from the NBA and NFL, a bunch of news, especially from the NFL. Before we get into it, I just want to say if you're watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe and share. It really helps us grow. And if you're listening to us on any type of podcasting app, please rate us and share us as well. The more we grow, the better of a product we can deliver to you. And I also want to kick it off with a little happy Martin Luther King Day. We're recording this on Martin Luther King Day. So, yeah, make sure you study up on all of his accomplishments and all of his successes. He's a very, very influential person in the history of American history in general. So shout out to Martin Luther King Jr. for holding it down. All right. Why don't we just go straight into the NFL, right? There's a lot of stuff to go over. So let's kick it off with the coaching hires. There were a few different coaching hires in the past week. The Jags have hired Urban Meyer. The Jets have hired Robert Saleh. And I believe the Lions hired Dan Campbell. I'm not too familiar with Dan Campbell, but we can go into the other two. Let's kick it off with Urban Meyer. How do you feel about the Urban Meyer signing?
I feel like for Urban Meyer, this was like the most ideal spot for him to start coaching in the NFL. The Jags are a team that has a lot of cap space. They actually are projected to have $73 million, which is the most cap space going into the offseason. They have 2 first-round picks, the first overall pick and the 25th pick. So it'll be interesting what they'll do. I'm assuming they'll get Trevor Lawrence with the first pick. There is some strange speculation that that he might draft Justin Fields over Lawrence, but Lawrence is a much more polished player and would fit right more into his system of things. So it should be interesting to see how he'll do as the head coach for the Jaguars.
Yeah, I've heard about the Justin Fields speculation as well. I don't buy it. I mean, Trevor Lawrence he's going to be sensational. You don't pass up on a generational talent like Trevor Lawrence. Um, Yeah, I'm rooting for Urban Meyer, but he has a lot going against him. I mean, college coaches, they rarely succeed in the NFL, if we're being honest. Um, there's only a couple I can really think of off the top of my head that have actually really succeeded in the NFL. Uh, Urban Meyer has a lot of health issues. He left his last job due to them. I could see him leaving for health related reasons 2 or 3 years in again. Um, But I like him as a person. I am rooting for him. I want him to do good on the Jags. I think the Jags have a lot of potential. I mean, Trevor Lawrence, he's going to change that franchise. And like you said, they have so much cap space. They can go out and get a bunch of free agents, kind of like the Dolphins did, the Dolphins offseason in last year. They had a very solid offseason, built their team very well, got Tua, and they played very well this season, almost made the playoffs. So I could see the Jags kind of following in that general trend, but obviously they need a lot more help on defense than the Dolphins did last year. So yeah, we'll see where that goes.
They have a lot of young talent, though. No one thought that James Robinson was going to be as good as he was. They still have DJ Chark in the receiver position, and so is that other wide receiver from Colorado University. I mean, they also have some, not as many, but few ballers on the defensive side that are also fairly young, such as C.J. Henderson, Josh Allen, and then Miles Jack. So, I mean, there is some building blocks for that team. But, Urban Meyer, he's a great coach, but we'll have to see. I was kind of going to go off what you were saying earlier, talking about how college coaches don't really succeed. Honestly, it's a coin toss. It's a 50-50 thing because you can get a coach just like Jim Harbaugh with the 49ers. He ended up doing fairly well, 44 wins as a head coach and only 19 losses in a Super Bowl appearance. And then also there was Pete Carroll from when he used to coach at USC and then jumped over to the NFL. Those two are, like the ceiling of, where it can go. But then there's times like Chip Kelly, which that experiment did not work very well for the Eagles. Nick Saban is also a head coach for the Miami Dolphins way back when in 1998 to 2006. and he was fairly mediocre. He had 65 wins and 63 losses as a head coach. And then currently right now, Cliff Kingsbury, who is not a very good coach over at Texas Tech, is currently the head coach of the Cardinals, and they have a losing record under him as his stint there. So it is really a coin toss. I really don't know where it can go, but I want to have a lot of hope at Urban Meyer. I mean, the dude was a really good coach over at Ohio State, so we'll have to see how this goes.
Yeah, and onto the going back to the Cliff Kingsbury point, yeah, it could be argued that he was kind of the reason they didn't even make the playoffs this year. Like his coaching decisions down the stretch were just not great, really not great. Let's jump to the Jets hire of Robert Saleh. I think this is a fantastic hire for the Jets. Not just from like a scheme perspective, because obviously they do need defense, and Robert Saleh was the former Niners defensive coordinator, so he knows what he's doing on defense. But not just from a scheme perspective, just from a personality and from a culture perspective, like he's really going to change things over in the Jets organization, in my opinion. I mean, I haven't heard a single bad thing about Saleh at all since he's been in the NFL. And he listens to his players a lot. That's been reported. He really listens and takes time to respond to them. I think that could work really, really well for the Jets, especially because they have a lot of young guys. Um, but yeah, I think this is a fantastic hire for the Jets.
Yeah, I think it was a really good pickup for the Jets. I was actually surprised how well a pickup it was, seeing as they hired Adam Gase a couple of years ago. You would think that this team didn't know what they were doing, but it was surprisingly a really good hire, and I really like the fact that he took the quarterback coach from the 49ers, Mike LaFleur, who's the brother of Matt LaFleur, over as his offensive coordinator for the Jets. And the 49ers offense was pretty solid. Well, in previous years was pretty solid. So this is definitely a move in the right direction for the team. Like you said, he's a very well-respected coordinator, and a lot of people. There's not really many things negatively said about the guy. I mean, he took this 49ers defense who dealt with a lot of injuries and a lot of the COVID issues, and they still end up being a top 5 defense this year. So it was really surprising, and I mean, it just goes to show how disciplined and how that this team can really, use this kind of personnel and this kind of like leadership, because this team does need a culture change if they really do seek any success in the future.
Yeah, totally agree. My question is, do they keep Sam Darnold now, or do they maybe pivot to drafting a Justin Fields now and starting over?
Yeah, that was an interesting thing because I don't know how they will work with Sam Darnold. I mean, Sam Darnold, for me, I feel like I can see him getting traded this offseason. But at the same time, if they do end up keeping him, I don't think it will be for very long. I mean, Sam Darnold, I'm not going to say he's a bad QB because seeing in his situation, it's really hard to make much of it. But at the same time, I feel like he hasn't done enough to make me believe that if he was somewhere else, like he'll be amazing. So we'll have to see. I mean, this offseason is going to be very interesting for them because just like I was saying earlier with the Jaguars, this team also is in a good position as they have the second most cap space going into the offseason. And then they also have the second overall pick, and then the 23rd overall pick, and then they also have another third rounder that they got from the Jamal Adams trade as well. So this team's in the right direction if they really want to go on the uptick and just go forward. But it's going to be hard because the AFC East is not what they used to be. The Bills seem like they're going to stay up top of that division. The Dolphins made a surprising jump this past season. The Patriots, they might get a lot of their players back after they opted out, this past season. So it's going to be a lot for the Jets to really go in the right direction, but it'll be interesting to watch.
Yeah, in my opinion, I really think that either they give Darnold one more year just to see what Saleh can do with him, or they straight up just trade him or cut him. They resetting the rookie clock on your quarterback is very good for teams financially and successfully. A lot of times, you kind of want to try and win while your quarterback's on the rookie contract. Once you start to pay your quarterback and pay all your other good players, your team kind of starts to fall apart a little bit because you're running out of money to pay everybody else. So I could definitely see them talking themselves into keeping him for one more year, but I could also see them being too enticed by someone like Justin Fields to keep Darnold around, who has not met their expectations, but it's not completely his fault. I mean, Adam Gase is not a good head coach.
Yeah, he's really not. And this was proven after Ryan Tannehill went over to the Titans and just
Oh
you
yeah.
know started to play so well. So it just really goes to show that Adam Gase.
It's the Adam Gase effect. Whenever you leave Adam Gase, you just start being good at the game of football. That's just what happens. And then the Lions hired Dan Campbell. Do you know much? I don't really know much about Dan Campbell.
I know he's the assistant coach and then the Titans coach, former assistant coach and Titans coach for the Saints. Um, I mean, this is one of those moves where, like, I mean, I guess it's a good pickup for them. I don't know really what direction they were going to go into. I really think the Lions are one of those teams that it's going to be in the rebuild for a while. For me, I don't really see them really doing too much. So I think Dan Campbell kind of knew that going into the position. I really thought that the Lions were going to go get Salah because he was a Michigan native. He went to college also in Michigan. So I really thought that they were going to go get Salah, but I mean, getting Dan Campbell, excuse me. I guess it was a interesting pickup for the Lions to say the least.
All right, let's jump to the divisional round recap. This is a very good slate of games, in my opinion. Let's kick it off with the Packers versus the Rams. So the Packers beat the Rams 32-18. And I'm not even gonna hold you. I only saw like part of the game. But just from what I saw, I mean, Rodgers just man, like he looks so good for 37. Like, and LaFleur's offense is just it's so much more fluid. It's so much more creative than McCarthy's offense. It's actually it's pretty ridiculous in my opinion. It's just night and day. Like now there really is a solid case to be made that Rodgers' talent was just wasted over a lot of his career because of Mike McCarthy. Uh, the Packers' run defense is still a bit of an issue. And Sean McVay, I mean, he put up a heck of a fight in this game. From what I saw, he had some really creative plays in the end zone and in the red zone in general. And Jared Goff did very surprisingly good. Everyone kind of expects Jared Goff to be that guy who throws for 400 yards, but also like 3 interceptions. But I thought he did I thought he did pretty solid this game. And Aaron Donald is just man. I have so much respect for Aaron Donald. Just the way he fought with a torn rib cartilage, like man, like I probably wouldn't even be able to get up in the morning. And this man's playing football in the NFL. Like that's ridiculous.
Yeah, for me, the game, this first half was a bit slow for the Rams. They didn't score their first touchdown until I think the ending half of the second quarter. For me, I thought the game was going to get out of hand after Rodgers had the rushing touchdown in the second quarter and they went up 16-3. I kind of felt like, oh, I guess the Rams were going to really put up a fight. But the touchdown did give them some kind of hope, and then obviously they did rally back and made it a 7-point game at 18-25 in the second half of the game. But for me, I felt like the Packers were not going to lose this game. They just have too much momentum on their side, and you're talking about the Packers defense, in particular run defense. The run defense was, like you said, was pretty mediocre. They did end up allowing 96 yards and allowing Cam Akers to run for 90 of those yards and a rushing touchdown. But I mean, what do you expect? Cam Akers was kind of the other half of that offense, besides just Goff, doing what he did this game. But their pass defense was the thing that was kind of surprising for me. They only allowed 148 passing yards this game and 4 sacks. They had 4 sacks on Goff, so it was surprising to see the Packers pass defense play, this well this late in the season. So, I mean, for me, I feel like the Packers defense actually did a lot more than I expect them to do this game, and I felt like it was balanced on the offensive side doing what they did, and the defense held up on the Packers side. So it was a very balanced game for the Packers. A lot of momentum going into the next game.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, the Packers defense, at least their secondary, it's nothing to really slouch at. They've been quietly pretty solid. I think I'm pretty sure they're top 10 in fewest passing touchdowns allowed per game, and they are seventh in fewest yards allowed passing per game. So, their schedule hasn't been incredibly hard, but those are still very impressive numbers. I like this secondary. We'll talk more about the Packers later on in the show.
Hmm.
But do you have anything else to say before we move on?
I mean, I was surprised how poorly Ramsey did against Devontae Adams, but Devontae Adams is a top two receiver, and he's not number two right now. So the dude's balling out. I think he had 6 catches on 6 targets on Ramsey, 55. I think 55 yards and 1 touchdown on Ramsey. So it was surprised to see Ramsey go down in that kind of way. Especially, he was talking a lot of smack going into the game, but the two do have some respect for each other. And I knew, I'm pretty sure Ramsey was aware that this guy was, balling out this whole season. So he was just another victim against Devontae Adams. So I was surprised to see Ramsey get kind of tore up in that way, but can't say I'm surprised.
Yeah, I mean, Devonte Adams, he's Devonte Adams. Like you can't stop him. You can only hope to slow him down. I
Hmm.
think Ramsey did all right for what it's worth. I mean, Devonte Adams definitely could have had way more of an impact than he did. But you know, it's just that Aaron Rodgers is so good at getting other guys open, just throwing them open in general. That even if Devonte Adams is completely shut out, somebody will have a good game, and Aaron Rodgers will find somebody to give the ball to. And Matt LaFleur, obviously, he ran that one. It was almost like a trick play where they kind of ran Devonte Adams from one end to the other and immediately threw him the ball, like before Ramsey could even react to him, and got a touchdown. That was a touchdown, I believe. I mean, that's just proof of the defense, or sorry, the offense that Matt LaFleur brings, like the creativity he brings to this team, and I'm a big fan of it.
Hmm.
All right, we're jumping to the Ravens versus the Bills. I have a lot to say on this. I have a lot.
I will get my piece out the way. 'Cause I know you have a lot more to say than I do. I think this was a very defensive game. The Ravens did a very good job in the first half of the game, and they also just did really good job in general because technically speaking, their offense only gave up really 10 points the whole game. If you want to get really even technical, the special teams technically only give the three. The defense only gave up technically 7. But it was really surprising that the Bills. I feel like they didn't play their sharpest game offensively. Josh Allen only had 206 yards passing, and I think 1 touchdown. And 100 of those 6 yards passing all went to Stephon Diggs. That also their run game was absolutely abysmal. They only had 32 rushing yards for the game. They actually had 220 yards total, while the Ravens had 340. So it kind of goes to show that their defense really did win them this game. The offense really just relied on that defense to really step it up, and they really did, and they did a really good job. And then for the Ravens side, for me, this was kind of like watching after. The O line was really bad. I know you'll have a lot more to say about that and go into detail, but the O line was really bad. I felt like after Lamar got injured, it kind of made me realize that this team's offense is only good because of Lamar, and also made me feel like made me kind of think about how it is with the Cardinals and Kyler Murray. How Cliff Kingsbury, he makes that offense run on Kyler Murray's legs, and if Kyler Murray's not there, they don't play well, like we saw in Week 17 when they lost to the Rams. I just felt like when Lamar went down, it was kind of like that was it. Like that's the game. Like he is that offense because that team struggles a lot without him. They really could have used him throughout the whole game, and they really could have used the receivers to really step it up. The receivers also didn't do a very good job. I think Mark Andrews was targeted 11 times. He only had 4 catches, 4 to 5 catches. So he didn't have his sharpest game either. So for me, I just felt like the Ravens really really disappointed this game when it really mattered most. I know you have a lot more to say, so I'll let you get to your thoughts.
All right. First, I just want to start with, man, stop hating on Lamar. Anybody that's hating on, stop hating on him, please. Look, he has, compared to his peers around his age, Baker, Josh Allen, Mahomes, Joe Burrow, even Joe Burrow, he has less offensive help than all of those guys. Seriously, I mean he's a good kid. He's 23. He's literally younger than Joe Burrow. He never gets in any trouble. He doesn't have any type of off-court issues. He's always supportive of his teammates, and he's just straight up a good person. I don't see any reason to, prey on this guy's downfall. It's ridiculous to me. I don't understand why there's such a massive hate bandwagon. I'll never really understand that, but Lamar needs help. He didn't have his best game, but I'd only blame him for about 50% of this. The other 50% was the god-awful O-line. It was horrendous. Look, when your center can't even snap the ball correctly, I mean, you're not going to win the game. I don't know what's up with Makari and with his name's not coming to me right now. Skura. I don't know what's up with either of them. They just got the yips during the middle of the season. They've had snapping issues, I'd say, since about like week 13 or so. Something's gotten into them, like psychologically. They just can't snap the ball correctly. Another thing that's gotten into somebody psychologically is Justin Tucker. He missed more field goals this game than he has in some seasons, which is it's ridiculous to think about. But like he really whiffed on a couple of kicks that he should have hit, that he normally hits. I don't know what was going on there. In my opinion, I mean, I don't know how prepared the Ravens even were for this game. The defense was absolutely elite. I have nothing bad to say about the defense at all. But let me get back to Lamar real quick. So Lamar did have a really costly turnover towards the end of the game, which is a 101-yard pick six. But, I blame that a lot on the red zone offense. Like you said, Mark Andrews had 11 targets. On any other team, Mark Andrews should not be getting 11 targets a game. But the problem was, like, he was the only one getting somewhat open. Like, he was one of the few getting somewhat open. Hollywood got somewhat open occasionally too, but then once they doubled him, he was missing. He was MIA. This team really, really badly needs a Stephon Diggs type receiver. Someone maybe like an Allen Robinson, just to come in, and Lamar needs someone to throw 50-50 balls to. It used to be Mark Andrews that he could do that to, but as of recent, Mark Andrews sometimes he has butterfingers, sometimes he just straight up doesn't reel it in. He's very inconsistent with the 50-50 ball. If they brought in somebody like I said, like Allen Robinson, he could have a Stephon Diggs type impact on the Ravens offense in general. Now let me get to Greg Roman. His offense is so predictable. Fans have recorded themselves calling out the plays from their TV before they happen. That's ridiculous. That's Steve Smith himself, the legend Steve Smith himself. He literally said the Ravens offense is elementary. And he said his 6-year-old could run the offense better. And he's not wrong. Greg Roman needs to adapt to do different things. He needs to run some more play action. He needs to put more options out there. When you're just snapping the ball and then passing it, that's not the way the Ravens offense is best utilized. The Ravens offense is best utilized by the threat of Lamar Jackson running. So if you try and force him to become a pocket passer, that's not his game. You're probably not going to win the game. So you've got to kind of copy a little bit of the Titans offense, run more play action, scare teams, run some options and whatever. Just scare teams into thinking this guy could take off right now, or he might be able to dump it off real quick to a receiver who could run for 15 or 20. They just need to stop abandoning the run the second they go down. I mean, Greg Roman literally, like, the minute they go down, and no matter like what the score is, even if they're down by 3, he stops running the ball. He just keeps throwing it. You don't. Ravens are the best rushing team in the league. Why are they going away from rushing, even though they're down by just 3 or maybe even 7 or maybe even 10, even down 10? They should still keep running. As long as they have 2 or 3 more quarters left, because that's usually when they go down. They usually go down in the first or second quarter. Whenever they go down that big, keep running the ball. I don't understand why he just insists on throwing it when that's not playing to their strengths. He's just not bringing their strengths out of them. And like I said before, I mean, Hollywood Brown and Willie Snead, they're the only serious options at wide receiver. And once Hollywood's doubled, I mean, he gets taken out of the game straight up. Hollywood is a great number 2 option, but I don't see him as a number 1, not unless he gets seriously better over the offseason. And Willie Snead, he's nice for, being in the slot and all, but come on, like, he'd be a number 4, number 5 receiver on most other teams. He shouldn't be, one of our best receivers. And same with Mark Andrews. Once he gets double teamed, he really has a tough time overcoming that as well. They just, they need more. They need to go back to their 2 tight end and 3 tight end sets. They really do. I mentioned how last game they used Ricard at the tight end position a little bit occasionally, and it worked out really, really well for them. I don't know why they strayed away from that this game. I'm not sure if they just didn't think it would work against the Bills, but I really hope they grab a tight end somewhere in free agency or maybe in the draft or something. They need to be able to run those 2 and 3 tight end sets, because then it becomes even more unpredictable. Now you're wondering, okay, these tight ends can really block like a lineman. So are they actually going to run it, or are they going to dump it off to one of those 2? Then it makes it just even more unpredictable. And it helps in general. It helps the entire offense. Like I said before, the offensive line is absolutely atrocious. I credit that to obviously Yonda retiring and Ronnie Stanley going down really early in the season. I expect he's going to be back next season. I expect him to be good again. But yeah, I mean, it's just stuff that I've been saying since, me. I've been saying this since last year. They need a better wide receiver. They need possibly another tight end, and they need a better center. You snapping the ball is 50% of your job, and if you can't snap the ball correctly, you shouldn't be getting minutes, right? But then they bring in the backup center, and he doesn't snap the ball correctly either. So it's like, something is going on psychologically in this team. I don't know what they need to do to break out of it, but yeah, man. I mean, when Lamar has no time to throw, it's really hard for him to win games. And people always criticize him for, dropping back in the pocket and then immediately starting to run. It's because for the most part, when you try and see from his perspective, most of his guys are like just completely swamped in coverage and the line is crumbling around him. He has to go. If he doesn't, he's going to get sacked straight up. He has to run. But yeah, I mean, going back to Josh Allen, I mean, I don't blame him for only throwing 206. It was a really windy game. So, accuracy with throwing was always going to be off. Even for Lamar, it was off as well. He had a couple of short throws. Yeah, I mean, I don't expect Josh Allen to repeat this performance. If anything, I expect him to really build upon it. But before I finish this rant, I just want to say, shout out to the Bills fans. Bills fans, y'all the best in the league, straight up. You guys are the best in the league. They raised, I believe it was like $290,000 for Lamar Jackson's charity in 24 hours. Yeah. I mean, honestly, Bills fans, yeah, shout out to you guys.
Well, the Bills Mafia has always been really good about that, because I think one time when they made it into the playoffs a couple of years ago, I think the Bengals spoiled the Ravens season and the Bills made it to the playoffs for the first time in like forever. They think they also gave money to someone else's charity or something like that, or they typically, like, when they feel like they were helped to go further in football and all that stuff. They really do look out for the other team to help them out, or looked out for the other people in general. And I mean, like you said, Lamar's a good dude, so them going to donate to his charity, it was nice. It was nice of them. But there was a couple things I wanted to say. My thing is about Josh Allen. Josh Allen, I mean, his performance was the better performance on the team. Like I said, the offense really is dependent on Diggs and Allen. So if those two, even if the other parts of the team aren't clicking, such as the running game, I feel like they can still win next week's game potentially. But I do think that the run game really needs to improve, because it can't just always be so dependent on Allen and
Yeah, I believe
Diggs.
I believe Sean McDermott said that running I think he was talking about when they were up by a big margin, why they would still throw. And I think he just went throwing is our running.
Yeah, at this point, yeah. When I mean, I think Devin Singletary had around 20 plus yards rushing, and that was about it. They really need. I mean, Zach Moss out with an ankle injury. They could have really used him there, because at least he adds some kind of running as well. Devin Singletary hasn't really been that guy for the past few weeks. I'm worried about their run game going into next week's game, because they really do need a more balanced approach on offense if they really hope to make an even deeper run and maybe a potential run to the Super Bowl. So we'll have to see about that for next week's game.
And I do want to end it on a couple things. So when you said, when you saw Lamar go out, you kind of noticed how dependent the Ravens offense was around him. I hope everyone else noticed that as well, because, people that hate on Lamar are always talking about how he can't elevate his team when it matters the most. His team wouldn't even be in the positions they were without him. Like this Ravens team, their defense is incredible, but you can't put your defense out there for 40 minutes. And that's what would happen if we had an average quarterback. The Ravens defense would have to be out there 90% of the game, and they wouldn't look good. And the Ravens would probably be top 5 or bottom 5 in the league right now. So, Lamar, he does deserve some of the blame for some of the decisions he made during the game, especially that pick 6. But at the same time, there's so many other issues. We shouldn't even be harping on Lamar. Lamar's the least of our concerns right now, in my opinion. It all really starts with the offensive line, and it just goes out from there to the rest of the offense in general. The offense is horrendously anemic without Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson is their life support, basically at this point.
Yeah. So it's going to be interesting how they're going to address things, because I felt like a lot of stuff that you did mention earlier, when we watched that Titans versus Ravens last year's playoff game, I kind of felt like it became very apparent there, like you said. And I felt like they really didn't do a very good job addressing that issue in the offseason. Instead of, they drafted a running back, which is cool and that's good. And J.K. Dobbins was, good for them, but they could have definitely used a receiver. They could have definitely used another tight end on the other side of Mark Andrews. They could have definitely done more to bring in more offensive pieces besides a running back. Or, they could have definitely brought in another offensive lineman, a more higher caliber offensive lineman. But they really didn't do too much to address any of that kind of stuff. So, they're not really setting them up with the best personnel around Lamar. So I don't know what they're going to do this offseason, but they definitely need to bring in somebody who can, like you said, they need someone that can to catch those 50-50 balls. They can really use somebody right now to do that for them.
I think the Ravens draft last year was very good. I think most of those players they drafted have turned into good rotation minutes for them, especially Patrick Queen. He's been fantastic. J.K. Dobbins was also great, but they didn't start him right off the bat, so his numbers are a little bit skewed. He doesn't look as good on the season, but I think that was also a very good pickup. They did draft a couple of wide receivers, but they haven't used them much. They just kind of been using them on kick returns and punt returns. Devin Duvernay, I mean, he's fantastic at kick returns, so I see why they like to put him there, but I'd like to see them incorporate them into the offense a little bit more. Yeah, but I mean, like you said, like you said, and like I said, they need somebody to catch 50-50 balls. They could even use just a big body in the slot in general, which usually is Mark Andrews. He's usually their big body guy who can, get some receptions in the slot. Uh, but they really need somebody like maybe a Julio Jones even. Maybe they trade for Julio. Uh, but yeah, get well soon, Lamar. By the way, he's out. He went out with a concussion. So yeah, let's jump to the Browns versus the Chiefs.
Speaking on other concussions, pretty much. Yeah, Mahomes. Yeah.
The Browns lost 17-22 to the Chiefs, and I don't care what anyone says. The Browns choked this game. Even while they choked this game,
I felt like that fumble into the end zone was a very that play definitely could have went back because I think Sorensen definitely did helmet to helmet. I don't know if I would call it necessarily targeting. I don't think he was purposely trying to go helmet to helmet, but he did go helmet to helmet, and I felt like they definitely could have called something for that when they didn't. I felt like that definitely hurt the Browns' chances of potentially winning. But honestly, for me, it just kind of felt like Kevin Stefanski got outcoached that game. Their defense didn't play very well either. There was times where the offense just didn't look very sharp. I don't think Nick Chubb even had over 80 yards rushing that game. So they really did a good job containing him. For me, I just felt like there could have been a lot more done on the Browns side to win. And I'm not going to take anything away from the Chiefs. The Chiefs played, offensively they played good enough to win. I think, when Chad Henne came in there, I was a bit unsure at first because he threw that pick. He overthrew Tyreek Hill and just threw a massive pick in the end zone. And yeah, that was literally the closest person to the ball was a Browns defender. But then, he made the game-saving plays because that run he did and went head down. I was like, that was bold. And then to throw it on 4th and inches, I think it was not the call that was crazy. I think it's the fact that he trusted his backup quarterback to do that on such a wide scale. I think that to me was like Andy Reid definitely had a lot of confidence in Chad Henne. And Chad Henne, he's been in the NFL for a long time. So it's surprising to see him, he was 15. Oh, 13. Wow, that's long. I remember this dude back in Madden 10 and all that stuff. Yeah, it was a long time ago. But Chad Henne, he's been around for a while. He definitely stepped up to be kind of I wouldn't say the player of the game, but he made one of the biggest plays, if not the biggest play of the game. So, shout out to Chad Henne. Anything is possible. He really showed up when they needed him to.
Hey, man, as Drake says, I buy you champagne, but I love some Henny. So, yeah, I totally agree with you on Chad Henne in general. He pulled a Heineke, basically. Heineke posted with that big run. And I totally, honestly, I put 80% of the blame of this game on Stefanski. I'm not going to lie. I really, man, I just some of the decisions he made throughout the game in general were pretty baffling. That challenge call, I know he couldn't really see it, but at least wait till you can see the replay so you're challenging something worth challenging, because he completely wasted a challenge, wasted a timeout, which could have been crucial down the stretch. And he should have challenged a couple other calls in the game, to be frank. There were a couple other calls that deserved a challenge to be, reviewed and looked at again, but he just didn't do it. And then towards I believe it was 8 minutes left in the fourth quarter. The Browns, when they were 3rd and 14, they threw a screen pass. They threw a screen pass at 3rd and 14. What are you doing at that point? You got to throw it deep somewhat. And then even if they didn't, get to where they needed to be, they should have gone for it on 4th. Stefanski should have known, the Browns defense, they weren't going to stop a parked car in that game. They just were not good in that game. he should have, relied more on his offense, which was cooking at the time, and which had converted, I think, every single fourth down right before that. You should have trusted him to go for it again. Like, Baker was having a fantastic game. He didn't even get a chance to go back. The Chiefs just kept running it and wasting the clock. Yeah, man, I think Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, even though Nick Chubb didn't have the greatest game, I still think Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt are the best running back duo in the league by far. Like I said, Baker did great. Patrick Mahomes, hopefully he gets better soon. Hopefully in time. I believe he will come back in time for the AFC Championship. But yeah, the Chiefs, the time of possession was really swayed to the Chiefs' favor. In the first half, the Browns only had 3 possessions, which is it's pretty ridiculous. Like,
Yeah.
the fact that the Chiefs were wasting that much time while also scoring, it's something it's really hard to stop. And Andy Reid really showed why he needs to be in the discussion for best coach in the league, straight up. He was in his bag tonight, man. He was in his bag tonight.
Yeah, Andy Reid, arguably one of the best coaches, if not the best coach, in my opinion, right now. For me, it just felt like, Andy Reid was on top of everything he needed to. Like you said, it was like a slow, kind of methodical kind of game. They really wasted a lot of clock and really held the Browns defense on the field, which the defense wasn't playing very well that game. So they're just taking advantage of what they can, and they did a very good job at that. I just felt like the Browns defense really let them down in this game, and I felt like the offense was, for me, I felt like the offense was a bit lackluster. I know you're saying Baker played really well and all that, and don't get me wrong, I think he did play well enough, but the offense to me just seemed very lackluster. The team only had 308 total yards, so I felt like they could have did a lot more. I feel like, watching that team last week, it felt like 2 different teams, because last week it was just pure offense. Granted, their own, all the turnovers put them in good field position, but the offense was clicking and they were moving the ball. And that team, they have deep options. Jarvis Landry is still their best option. Even Donovan Peoples-Jones can catch a couple deep balls. So I felt like they really didn't do the most to win. I felt like they weren't playing to win in the fourth quarter, because like you said, throwing a screen pass on a third down in such a big part of the game it's questionable, and then punting away, and I just felt like he just kind of gave up. I felt like he really didn't do enough to win. I didn't feel like there was enough like there wasn't enough going on. Like they didn't try hard enough to win this game. I felt like it was pretty disappointing for the Browns. To win in such a fashion last week and then just kind of fizzle out like this, it is kind of concerning a bit. I don't know how they want to approach the offseason. The team's still a talented team, don't get me wrong, but if there's no heart, that team's not going to go anywhere. They're not going to win anything.
Mm-hmm. I do want to say that, Baker wasn't incredible throughout the entire game, but like in the fourth quarter and then like towards the end of the third, when like they needed him to step up, he stepped up and he delivered. He was throwing on fourth, he was throwing on third, he was getting first downs. Baker, this is going to be a little bit of a hot take, but I think they're a better team without Odell.
That's not the craziest thing said, because the team was playing lights out after his injury.
Let me tell you why. So Baker is at his best when he doesn't have to worry about who gets what kind of targets. Because once he starts worrying about that, he starts throwing into double coverage and throwing to guys when he really shouldn't, when they're not even open. I think Baker does better with this group of guys who won't complain about, how many targets they're getting, especially Jarvis Landry. Jarvis Landry is one of the most humble, soft-spoken guys in terms of receivers in the league. And, I know he's not complaining about his target share or anything. He just wants to win the game. Odell complains about his target share a lot, sometimes publicly, even to the media. And if you try to force Baker to make those kinds of throws, he's, that's when he looks at his worst. That's when he, like I said, he throws in the double coverage. and it's not a good look for the Browns offense in general. But I think once OBJ went down, Baker felt just freed of a chain. He just felt free to throw to anybody who was open. He said, "You know what? I don't care if Jarvis Landry has 2 targets this game or 10. If he's open, I'm throwing him the ball." And I think that's a big difference in just Baker's mentality and approach to the game. And I think that's kind of the reason he stepped up towards the second half of the season, and especially towards crunch time in this game.
Yeah, I can understand where you're coming from with that point, and all those points you just made. I don't know what they're going to do with OBJ now that you do mention it, because like I said, they were also they were playing lights out after OBJ did go down. You know, having that concern of who gets the ball does, he did force a lot of passes early on in the season, and threw some bad interceptions. But if they see it this way, also, I wouldn't be surprised if OBJ is shipped away. He's a talented player. Don't get me wrong, but when he kind of sometimes at times it feels like he puts his own stats in front of just winning. This happened at the end of his run in New York with the Giants. So I mean, I like OBJ, but if they have to get rid of him to keep their winning ways, best believe they probably will let him go if they can, or if they believe that's the best thing to do for them.
Yeah. All right, let's jump to the saddest game I've ever watched. The Saints and the Buccaneers. So the Saints lost to the Buccaneers 20-30. Man, it was kind of hard to watch, I'm not gonna lie. As somebody who's grown up watching Drew Brees, like one of my first Super Bowls ever was watching the Saints versus the Colts. So, just growing up kind of watching Drew Brees and then seeing him now in the state he's in, it just breaks my heart, man. It just breaks my heart, genuinely.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I did get into football around that same period of time, but I did not like the Saints. Not because of Drew Brees. I think that was around the Bounty Gate going on. I could not stand I could not stand the Saints. So a little piece of me still couldn't care for the Saints. But Drew Brees, as a player, as an individual player, he did grow on me a lot, and I did like the way he plays. I like the way he carried himself on and off the field. If he was really retiring after this game, because it's still, it's not 100% confirmed yet, but just to go out on 3 interceptions, which pretty much all the interceptions led to points. No, 2 of the interceptions led to points, and the fumble led to points. But a lot of their turnovers were really bad, and it could have been avoided. And I just felt like the Saints it just fizzled out. I mean, they just didn't even look that. I mean, they didn't even look that good last week against the Bears when they beat them 9-21. But it's just offensively, that team was just lacking a lot what they would be used to see from the team. I mean, they said that Jameis Winston had the longest pass for the Saints all season, and that was his first and only pass, in the game. So, and I just felt like we haven't seen that from the Saints offense. Like they really didn't go deep this season, and it just kind of goes to tribute to Drew Brees going up there in age. I mean, the fact that Drew Brees even is back and played these last few weeks is crazy after that rib injury. I think he broke 10 to 11 ribs, so it was really crazy for him to even be playing right now at that age with an injury like that. So props to Drew Brees in general to even play, but that team just as a whole did not look very good. It was sad to see. Trust me, I going out on that kind of note is really sad. But I felt like this is what we've seen from the Saints the past 3 years. I think they said yesterday that the Saints lost 3 straight AFC NFC Championship games or something along those lines. So it was really bad for the Saints, and it just was really hard to watch. I do agree with that. It was really hard to watch.
Yeah, I mean, Father Time just, he's undefeated, and he finally caught up to Drew Brees. I do also want to say, Tom Brady didn't impress me at all until about the 4th quarter. I thought he played pretty bad, in my opinion, and some of that was on his receivers, just straight up dropping easy passes or straight up not even turning around when he would throw them the ball, like they were just kind of miscommunicating. but he threw 2 really bad picks, but they both he lucked out on both of them because one of them just barely hit the ground right before the guy caught it, and the
Mhm.
other one, it was caught just barely out of bounds. Um, and those 2 interceptions really could have, swung the entire game. So as good as Brady's fourth quarter performance was, which it was amazing, you know, one through the first through third quarters just were not good in my opinion. Uh, I do wish Drew Brees went out on a little bit of a better game. We're possibly losing a lot of people this year. We're losing possibly Big Ben, Maurice Pouncey, Larry Fitzgerald, Drew Brees. I mean, we're losing so many, old, uh, old Hall of Famers. That it's pretty sad to see Drew Brees end on this note. But I can't believe how Michael Thomas looked. Like
Yeah.
what's happened to him? Like he's been the fastest and most random fall from grace that I've ever seen from a wide receiver. He just straight up, like, ever since his injury, and then he came back, he had some team issues. Apparently, he tried to fight somebody or something like that, got into an argument, and then he got, they didn't let him play the next game, and then he got injured again. I don't know what's going on with Michael Thomas. I don't know if he's still a little hurt or feeling it, but he has 0 catches this game.
Yeah, on 4 targets,
Yeah.
and he got stiff armed by Murray Bunting when he got picked off. So he didn't look very good. And I think really, I feel like for me, he he's frustrating because he is such a great talent. But I think it really goes to the quarterback play as well. The quarterback play was just not it was not impressive this whole season. I was never really impressed by Drew Brees this season. I was definitely not impressed by Taysom Hill. Jameis Winston really never got a chance to really do anything. I feel like for me, Jameis Winston, call me crazy. I feel like Jameis Winston would probably be the best. If out of the current quarterback room they have right now, he'd probably be the best option going forward. Because Taysom Hill is, as a starting quarterback, doesn't do enough for me to feel like this guy can take this team to the playoffs or anything like that. Jameis can throw. He just wasn't accurate. If they and he got LASIK surgery, they fixed his eyes up. So hopefully he'll be better if he is the starting quarterback next season for the Saints, because the Saints do look to resign him. But I think there was a player that we're really not talking about who's kind of the X factor of the game, in my opinion.
Go ahead.
And that was the return of Devin White. Devin White was an absolute baller that game.
Yes.
He had 10. He led the team in tackles with 10 solo tackles, and then he got his first interception in his whole career, which led to more Buccaneers points, which kind of was the icing of the cake because that's when they were down. They were up 23-20, and then his interception happened, and then they scored to go 30-20. And pretty much for me, that was when the game ended. Officially ended, because Devin White really put the icing on the cake right there. I think the return of Devin White was what the team definitely needed. The team, the offense, the defense runs through Devin White. He is the leader of that defense. And that team defense looks so much better when he's out there.
Totally agree. I mean, you could tell that defense was missing him throughout the season, just when he wasn't there. And obviously, if you had not had any knowledge of anybody coming back at all, like if you just saw the Bucs defense in this game versus a couple weeks ago, there's a night and day difference. You're right. Like he really does change that entire defense. I also want to talk about Mike Evans. I think he's being criminally underutilized, man. Genuinely. I think, Tom Brady keeps throwing 50-50 balls deep to Gronk. And I don't think that's the best option. I think he should take those exact same balls he throws and throw them to Mike Evans. He's like 6'4". He can jump really high. Throw him a 50-50. He'll probably get it. I mean, it's not even a 50-50 for him. It's like a 70-30. Like he's probably going to get it. They really only seem to really utilize him in the end zone or in the red zone, which, I mean, obviously he's fantastic at that as well. But, he he can run. He can run fast. He can jump high, and he's tall. Like, use him a little bit more. Like, I know what Bruce Arians was a little bit. I believe like earlier in the season was a little bit annoyed with how much Tom Brady didn't use Mike Evans because obviously he sees Mike Evans' ability, but they've used him a little bit more. But Mike Evans he's the type of he's being used in the sense of like some games he'll have like 2 catches for 2 touchdowns and that's it. Like
Yeah.
they only use him as a red zone threat when he can be so much more. I don't understand why they don't use him more.
I mean, typically, when they go against the Saints, Marshawn Lattimore does usually typically shut down Mike Evans, and that seems like the person they always love to put on Mike Evans. I think last night was one of the few times he actually got a catch and a touchdown on Marshawn Lattimore, which was just pure athleticism. The dude was like just towering over Lattimore and really pretty much bodied him for it. But I mean, I do think they could have utilized Mike Evans a lot more because last week when they went against Washington, I felt like Mike Evans was always catching something. He felt like the ball was always somehow finding a way to get into his hands. So maybe they change up the game plan this week. But I do expect to see Mike Evans utilized a lot more next week.
Yeah, especially with Antonio Brown going down. I'm not sure how long
Yeah.
he's going to be out. But if it's serious and if he's out for a little while, they're going to have to use Mike Evans more. Scotty Miller was pretty good this game too. Him and Brady
Yeah.
have a good connection.
I'm concerned for Chris Godwin. He has not been playing very well. He's been very inconsistent throughout this whole playoff run for me. Because his route running's been a bit wonky, and then also when he had that pretty much that touchdown catch he just lost control of all by himself, I kind of felt like Chris Godwin hasn't really looked the same in these past few games. I'm concerned because they really need him to step up when in this time frame because they're potentially looking at a Super Bowl run if they can beat the Packers, which they did earlier this year in Week 6. But I don't know. They really need Chris Godwin to step up, especially with potentially Antonio Brown out. They really need him to step up for sure.
All right, let's jump to the NFC Championship preview. So we're gonna stay talking on the Bucs a little bit. So why don't you go ahead and give your score prediction for the Packers and Bucs?
So it's interesting. I was watching ESPN earlier today, and they said that both these AFC and NFC championship games are Week 6 rematches this year. So, I feel like for me, with this game though, I feel like the Packers would want to have revenge. These teams are definitely different teams than they were back in Week 6. The Bucs seemed a bit more unstoppable early on, but then kind of slowed down. But they kind of picked up momentum again. And the Packers were in a weird funk at the time, but then definitely picked up since then. It's gonna be. I feel like this is gonna be a higher scoring game. I feel like this will probably come down, to how well this team's play in the cold weather because this is a Tampa Bay Buccaneers team. Tampa Bay is a pretty warm area. I know Brady's used to playing in the cold, but that it is something to consider for the other players that are so used to being located in Tampa Bay. With AB potentially being out for the game, and then if Chris Godwin stays inconsistent, I do see the Packers taking advantage of that because, like you said earlier in the podcast, that secondary for the Packers been nothing to really, nothing short of talented because Jair Alexander leads that secondary as he's one of the best corners in the NFL right now. For me, I just feel like the Packers are going to I'd probably say squeak this one out 34-31.
Wow, that's pretty close to my prediction. I also have the Packers squeaking it out, but by a little bit more. I have the Packers 34-28. The thing with the Bucs is, their run defense is incredible. I believe they do have the number 1 run defense right now. Their secondary looked better than usual last week because of, in my opinion, the play of Drew Brees. I don't think they're going to have that repeat kind of performance with Aaron Rodgers. I mean, Aaron Rodgers, he's just playing on a different level right now. A different level than Drew Brees, especially, but also on a different level than Brady, in my opinion. I just think, Devontae Adams, he finds a way to feast no matter who's on him. They're going to find a way to get him involved, even if it's through, jet sweep or something. They'll find a way to get him involved and get him to touch the ball because they know when Devontae Adams gets his targets, gets his touches, he's going to help lead your team to victory. So, I expect Matt LaFleur to pull some tricks out of his bag for this game. And obviously, like we're talking about before, Green Bay's secondary is very good. And, the run defense is a little bit sus. I do believe Ronald Jones is set to come back. That could be very, very good for the Buccaneers. But at the same time, this Packers team is also the same one that, kind of shut Derrick Henry down earlier in the season. They could do it again if Ronald Jones starts feasting. I do believe in this team to be able to read the offense a little bit, maybe throw out a blitz to try and stop the run. I just don't, Tom Brady's the GOAT. Let me put it out there. He's the greatest quarterback of all time in terms of at least legacy. But, I don't trust him against this defense. I don't trust him against the Packers defense. A lot of his throws are sus. Like I said, he almost had 2 more picks in last night's game. And, if he against the Packers, if those 2 picks kind of fall in the right place, if he gets a little bit unlucky with where he throws it, that could spell the game for them straight up. Because you do not want to give this Green Bay offense any type of opportunities, for short yardage possessions at all.
No,
that's not going to be the way you're going to win this game at all. That's going to definitely lead to your downfall. I do think that Brady will throw a couple, costly picks in this game. And that's why I have the Packers kind of squeaking out there 34-28, because even though the Bucs run defense is incredible and Aaron Jones probably isn't going to do much again, they still can throw a couple screens to Aaron Jones, and they can, set their running game up by throwing well. So, maybe they'll run a little trick play where they have Aaron Jones, where they fake a pass and they let Aaron Jones just run it up the middle or something. I think Green Bay will find a way. I really believe in their head coach. I can't say the same about the Bucs. I don't really believe in Bruce Arians and Tom Brady. But, this could go either way. This really could go either way.
Yeah, I have right now, just the way Packers offense has been looking, I just have a lot more faith in the Packers to, step up this game and really, get the revenge, because, what happened in the regular season was not something we ever see from Aaron Rodgers. I think that was definitely his worst game of the season. He had no passing touchdowns in the game and had 2 interceptions, but he's just been playing so lights out since then. I just cannot see this team losing.
Yeah. Let's jump to the AFC Championship with the Chiefs versus the Bills. You know who I'm going to pick, and I know who you're going to pick, most likely, because we picked these 2 to go to the Super Bowl. So our predictions are looking pretty good right now.
Yeah.
Why don't you go ahead and give me your scores first?
For me, what happens in this game is contingent on the status of Mahomes, of course. The concussion protocol is a legitimate protocol. There's 5 steps to it. It's pretty lengthy. They say they might not see real results until maybe Wednesday, Thursday time frame, which is cutting it kind of close to when the game's supposed to happen. I just feel like if Mahomes is playing, the Chiefs will probably win. And if Mahomes is not playing, I feel like the Bills will easily win. I wouldn't say, I would say easily win that game. The Bills haven't looked the greatest in this playoff run. Let's be honest, they really haven't. But they are playing winning football. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter, if it's a big win or a small win. A win's a win. This team finds ways to win in spite of, some things not going their way, such as the running game. So for me, the scores, if Mahomes is back and healthy, I think the Chiefs win 25-21. If he's not, I feel like the Bills win 19-10.
Some pretty low scores.
I do not see this to be a high scoring game at the moment.
I do want to say that I do believe this will be a much more defensive battle than a lot of people will think. But I still have some pretty high scores, so I'm confident that Mahomes will play. I don't think he's going to miss this playoff game. I don't think, I think the team, if anything, might cut some corners just to kind of squeak him by the concussion protocol. Mahomes will probably do everything he can to try and squeak by it. I am like 98% sure that he will play. And so I based my score off of that. And I have the Bills winning 33-31.
So even if he does play, you still think the Bills are going to win?
Yes, I still think the Bills are going to win. Because Mahomes, coming straight off the concussion protocol, he's not going to fully be healthy. He might not adapt really well to noise or the lights in the stadium. I mean, you know how concussions are.
Yeah.
It's definitely going to be really difficult on Mahomes. And the thing is, when the Chiefs lose, typically, they typically lose because they are outgunned, and because the other team builds a lead on them early. I'm pretty confident in the Bills' ability to build a lead on them early. I am a little bit worried that the Ravens defense kind of exposed some things with the Bills offense that Kansas City might try to emulate. I think, this is the thing that worries me the most about picking the Bills here is that when the Chiefs defense really tries, they're honestly like a top 10 unit in the entire league. When they really try, when they're all bought in and when they like give their 100%, they're a top 10 unit in the league. That's how they've been playing. So, I just wouldn't be surprised if this was more of a defensive game. I did put it as, a high scoring game. I do think there might be a couple pick sixes here and there. I'm anticipating a little bit of those. But look, this is probably going to be the best game of the week. I'll just put it out there.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, for me personally, I didn't think the divisional games were too exciting this year, but I'm really hoping that the AFC and NFC Championship games will be a lot more exciting than the divisional week was.
All right, well, that's it for the NFL. So let's jump to the NBA. Let's start with a little bit of breaking news just today. Kevin Porter Jr. is expected to be released or traded by the Cavs following a locker room outburst. So let me give some background on this. So apparently they gave Taurean Prince Kevin Porter Jr.'s locker room. And Kevin Porter Jr. hasn't been playing since, he hasn't played at all this entire season. And he didn't play at all because he was in a legal battle with the police because he was driving under the influence of marijuana and he crashed his car. And when the police searched his car, they found illegal firearms and marijuana. So he was kind of in a dispute with the police and everything. So he wasn't showing up to camp or he couldn't play. But then they did drop the case eventually. And even when they dropped the case, he still didn't come back. He cited personal issues for not coming back yet. He finally did come back, only to see his locker room was given away to Taurean Prince while he was gone. And he got really mad and started yelling and throwing food at people to the point where Kobe Altman had to step in. And this is a player that, the Cavs gave up 4 second-round picks to move up to get him. And now they're basically going to have to cut him because nobody's going to trade for him at this point. I really doubt anyone's going to trade for him. It does, it was a little bit dirty that they gave away his locker, But to react in that manner is just it's very, very childish, and I'm worried about his mental state, his mental health state right now. I'm not sure if he's, in the best place mentally. I hope he gets the help he needs. He is talented. He's always been extremely talented. He was projected the lottery before, these off the court issues started. So he has the talent. He just needs to put it together off the court. I don't know if he needs, legitimate help. But if he does, I really hope he gets it.
Yeah, I mean Kevin Porter Jr. He's a talented player with a lot of upside, but I feel like he was already kind of on a short lease coming into the season. Like you mentioned, he was arrested for the weapon charges back in November of 2020. I think he also was accused of hitting a woman around that same time frame as well. I think that case might have been dropped though. I have not heard much of an update on that one in a long time. Um, but when they had the confrontation with the GM, he used the phrase "quote unquote" modern day slavery when in this heated conversation and heated confrontation. My thing is he has a lot of maturing to do. I am also concerned for his well being. The dude is a very talented player. I would hope to see him kind of get back on the right track. I mean, like obviously I wanted to see him get back on the right track, but you know, um, he definitely need a new change of scenery. I don't know what's going on behind the scenes or what's causing all these things to happen, but it's just not a really good look on his part, and it's really not a good look on the Cavs part as well. You know, I think for me personally, I feel like I said earlier, he just has a lot of maturing to do. I think the one thing that stuck out to me about this player, his most memorable play as a throughout the NBA is when he dunked on a 76ers player last year and flexed on them while they were down 40 plus points. And the announcer said, "Yeah, what are you doing, man? You're down 1,000 points." And he was annoyed with Kevin Porter Jr. when he did that. So for me, maturity is always a concern. I don't know if he can bounce back from something like this because, these kind of confrontations, stuff like that. I mean, it's really bad on your, it looks really bad on your character. If he doesn't, get himself back on track or get his situation straightened out, he might find himself in the G League or even worse, just out the league completely.
Yeah, I mean, locker room issues are, and detriments to the locker room are not desired in every sport. I feel like they're tolerated a little bit more in the NBA. So I could see another team taking a chance on him, but I don't think any team's going to trade for him. I think the Cavs do have to cut him at this point. Um, yeah, I just hope Kevin Porter Jr. I hope he gets the help he needs. Um, and yeah, I just wish the best for him.
That's all
Let's
you really can do at this point, honestly.
Yeah, let's move on to another strange situation. So first, I want to shout out Kyrie for doing something really great. He bought George Floyd's family a house, which is fantastic move on his part. Uh, Kyrie's not a bad person. I just want to put that out there right now before we get into this. Um, what do you think happens to Kyrie now that Harden is back, or now Harden is on the Nets and is looking really good with KD? What do you think they're gonna do with Kyrie?
I think it's too soon to say. They only did play one game. I think they are scheduled to play tonight against the Milwaukee Bucks. I feel like that for me would kind of help gauge more as Milwaukee is a better team in the East compared to the Magic, the team they did come off beating. Um, I don't know what they're gonna do with Kyrie. I don't think they should trade him in any sense this season. I think this season they should just let him play it out. If he does come back to play, which I'm assuming he will, because he has been fined 50K for violations of COVID protocols and health protocols, and he already lost $1 million from missing a handful of games already. But for me, like I said, I don't feel like they should trade him. I feel like if they trade him, it could affect the morality in the locker room. It also could affect their relationship with Kevin Durant, as those two kind of came as a package deal. I feel like if they upset Kevin Durant, that will upset Harden, who they also got, because obviously Harden and KD are boys as well still. So I feel like that will just trickle down if they make a trade, including Kyrie in it, especially without letting the others, those two, know. Because I think that was the reason why Harden even wanted to come play there, is because he gets the chance to play with two other high octane and elite players. So, the trade for him is a bit much. The trade amount is a bit much, but I think they have to really get him back on track, because like you said earlier, Kyrie's not a bad guy. I mean, I feel like what Kyrie's actually, what he does is if good with good intentions. What he does, it's commendable. I just feel like he's putting his main career on the back burner, which gives him the platform to do what he does, which gives him the funds to do what he does. He's got to find a balance. He can't neglect one thing and do another thing unless he's ready to just call it quits and just go completely become an activist at this point. Kyrie just needs to really get himself together.
Yeah, I'm totally with you on that. Matt Barnes on Instagram did comment saying, something along the lines of, screw Kyrie and his antics. I'm just going to trade him for depth and build around Harden and KD. And you know what? In my opinion, I think that's the right move. I'm not sure what the locker room is like at all. There haven't been many reports on what's going on, but I can't imagine the team's too happy with Kyrie not telling them where he's going and then just kind of leaving and not showing up for like 2 weeks. I think, the Nets really need they need some depth. Now, obviously they traded for Harden, so they lost a bunch of their depth, but they really need a center. They really need a center. DeAndre Jordan, he's okay, but he doesn't look the same at all, especially not defensively. The Nets they need a new starting center. They've been playing Jeff Green at center a lot, which is something that the Wizards did like back in the day. Which he can play center, but not full time.
No.
Jeff Green he's very versatile, but they need a strong, new center, starting center, and I think a Kyrie trade for, man, I couldn't even tell you right now, but some type of center around the league would really, really help them. Or even just grabbing another bench scorer or bench playmaker, that would help them as well. I do think that Harden, KD, and Kyrie, we talked about this on the emergency podcast about how they fit. One of those guys has to sacrifice. And, I'm not sure if Kyrie can do that. I'm not sure how much he can sacrifice. If I feel like, Kyrie should be the one to sacrifice because technically he's the worst of those three. But I think KD would be the one more likely to sacrifice just because he's the bigger guy. He's handling the ball less. And so I think he would end up being the one who would have to sacrifice a little bit, even though that wouldn't be the right move. KD, he's an unselfish player. He would be willing to, take a little bit of a hit to his points. I just don't see how all of them fit together particularly well, especially on defense. I know KD does play very good defense, and James Harden's defense it's on and off, but when he is really trying, his defense is actually very solid. I believe he had 3 steals in his debut. Steals aren't a measure of defense specifically, but it was a good sign. It's a good sign that he's really still trying on that end. I think trading Kyrie's the right move, but you're right. I don't think they'll do it this season. If they do it, it'll probably be in the offseason.
Yeah, like you say, it is the right move. It's not the move they will make. I just feel like that will definitely hurt any kind of chemistry they want going, and they do want to write it out and see if this team really does have, if the trio they brought in really has the capabilities of even making a championship run like the media wants us to believe right at the moment. So we'll have to really see where that's going to go, to be honest.
All right, so last segment of the day, we're gonna talk about some teams that need to step it up before it gets too deep into the season and it's just too late for them. I'll kick it off. On this one. I think the Timberwolves seriously need to step it up. I mean, look, I didn't project them as a playoff team. I projected them as, possibly making the play-in tournament if everything goes perfectly for them. But, I didn't think they'd be the worst in the West right now. Like I did not expect that. And there's a bunch of reasons for that. Of course, they've missed Cat for a few games due to injury. And now they're missing him even more because of COVID. Get well soon, by the way, Cat. It's very hard to hear that he's getting COVID, especially after how much it's racked his family. But, even with Cat on the floor, there's just zero defense from almost every position on the floor. There's basically almost no defenders, and the team building is just so questionable by the Wolves GM. I mean, trading Robert Covington just was not a good idea if you're trying to compete. He is, he can be an anchor of a defense, and to trade him away when defense is the main thing you need and like wing play is the main thing you need it was a very bad move in my opinion. And also just cutting Rondé Hollis-Jefferson, I'd say he was their best defender on the team. And they cut him before the season even really started. I think that was a really bad move by them. They need defense, but they keep throwing away good defenders. I don't understand what they're trying to do here. Their only real playmaker is Ricky Rubio. D'Angelo Russell, he can kind of play make a little bit. But that's not his main goal. Cat even can play make a little bit, but that's not his main goal. The only real playmaker who's setting guys up right now is Ricky Rubio. And obviously they're relying on Anthony Edwards for about like 15 points a game. And he's a rookie, and they're relying on him for a lot of the offense off their bench. There's so many questionable decisions made by the GM. I just don't know where this team is going to go. I don't know where they're headed. I don't know what they're doing. They don't have their own draft pick this year. So tanking does nothing for them. Being worst in the West, all it does is improve the Golden State Warriors draft stock because they have their pick. It is top 3 protected. So technically, if they really want to take the chance, they could tank. But, we've seen from the Knicks in the past few years that the lottery can be merciless. You could be the worst team in the league and not even end up with a top 4 pick. Like, the lottery is ruthless. So, if ping pong balls don't bounce their way, suddenly their pick is gone. They don't have any assets to really build off of, and maybe Cat straight up asks for a trade. I don't know where this team is really going. I don't know what they're trying to achieve this year. If they are trying to compete, they're not making the right moves to compete. And if they're trying to tank, this is the worst season to choose to tank. Because like I said, they don't have their own pick. So yeah, I mean, the Timberwolves, they need to step it up before it gets too late. If they don't, man, I just would feel bad for Wolves fans.
Yeah, I mean, there's one thing I want to say. I feel like the coach, Ryan Sanders, has been there for a long time. I think they can definitely move on from him eventually. I feel like he's really never been the right guy for the job. I know the whole situation with his father and all that going on, and they felt like, it'd be right to have his son coach afterwards. He's not really filled in the shoes that his father did. They definitely can move on from Ryan Sanders probably by the end of the season. I'm never a fan of coaches being fired during season because it's just a lot more pressure on the interim coach, and it's usually you get some of the team's sloppiest basketball once the coach is fired, depending on how bad the coach is. But that team, they can definitely step it up. I think the one of the few bright spots of that team at the moment, the past few games, have been Malik Beasley. He's been playing quite well, but he's only one player on a roster. So basketball still is a team sport. People forget. I know it's a star-driven sport, and everyone thinks that one or two people can do it, but it's still a team sport. So they definitely need the others to get it going if they really want to make any type of potential run to the playoffs. I don't even think that's in their sights. For me personally, I don't think it's in their sights, but at least to make that effort. So for me, the team I chose to step it up is the Miami Heat. The Miami Heat have lost 3 straight. They're currently 4-7 and 12th in the East. Jimmy Butler has only played a handful of games this season, though. He only played 6, and in the 6 games he did play, he's averaging 15.5 points, 5.5 rebounds, 5.3 assists, and 2.2 steals. I feel like right now, currently, the people who are kind of even keeping this team even afloat at the moment is Bam Adebayo, Tyler Hero, and Duncan Robinson. I feel like Goran Dragic is kind of playing so-so. He's averaging 14 points, 5.6 assists, which is good, which is solid, but he is averaging 3 turnovers per game. I feel like a big a part they had last year that was really good, that's just not playing good at all this season, is Kendrick Nunn. Kendrick Nunn has regressed exponentially. He's only averaging 5.5 points, and the rest of his stats also has dropped. This is a 10-point decrease than what he saw his rookie year, which is really bad because as a sophomore player, we all heard of sophomore slumps, but this is taking the cake. This is he's in dangerous territory of how bad he is slumping. Let me get some other stats to kind of go along with why this team is struggling. Currently, they are 19th in the league for points per game with 110. They're actually shooting well. They're 7th in the league in field goal percentage with 47.9%. 5th in the league in assists per game, with 26.7. But this is where it starts getting on the bad side. They are 27th in the league in rebounds per game with 42.6. 24th in the league with oppositional points per game, which other teams scoring 114.5 points per game, which is never good when your opponents are scoring more than your team is scoring. Obviously, that's just a recipe for disaster. There's 26th in the league in steals per game, 27th in the league in blocks per game, 24th in the league in plus or minus, while they're negative 4.5 right now as a whole team. And they are dead last in the league in turnovers, and they're turning over the ball 18 times per game. So the thing is really worrisome with this team is last year they were just in the finals, and they've regressed exponentially from since that moment. And a lot of teams and a lot of GMs believe that they kind of fed into the narrative of overachieving in the bubble. I think the team personally did overachieve in the bubble. I don't know if I consider this team a championship team anymore. I don't even when they made the championship, made the finals last year, I didn't think they were the most equipped team. I didn't even think they were the best team in the East last year. They just got really fortunate in a lot of the situations they were in. The team typically was really good defensively last year, but obviously as we've seen, their defense has been a big problem. I think the absence of Jimmy Butler has probably contributed to that, but the team was only 3-3 when he did play in the 6 games he did play in, which still isn't that good. That's just 500. The team has really not found its main scorers. I don't think anyone on the team is currently averaging over 20 points per game, so they could definitely use somebody who can definitely step up and start scoring for them. Like I said, turnovers kills this team a lot, but these issues that they are having are fixable. It's a lot of it it's mental, and a lot of it is to do with coaching. I feel like Eric Spoelstra is one of those coaches who can definitely who's capable of definitely fixing something like this with a lot more drills and a lot more, just to get the team more focused and whatnot. It's concerning to see them play this bad at the moment, but I do not think that this season's over for them. It's not one of those seasons like, hey, we're playing bad, let's just start tanking. There are still decent pieces on this team. I think Avery Bradley is still a solid piece off the bench for them. I need to get Andre Iguodala, start get him going again, because he hasn't really done much, in my opinion, ever since he's made to the Heat. I know he played a little bit last year in the playoffs, but for me, he hasn't really had that effect that he had when he was with Golden State. Granted, he is older now, but I just still, I just need a little bit more from Iggy. And yeah, that's never good when that's your only highlight of the season. So he can definitely improve. I feel like the whole bench unit can definitely improve. They just gotta get more focused and just kind of clean up, because once they hit that mid-season stretch, having clean ball handling and a lot of that focus is definitely necessary when you hit that mid-season stretch, because a lot of those games just keep coming and coming. So you got to really stay focused as much as possible. So I think the Heat can step it up. It's just a matter of time when. I think when Jimmy Butler hopefully comes back from his quarantining process, hopefully he will come back and start moving this team back into the correct direction.
Yeah, I think a lot of their issues were just compounded by the COVID issues that they've been having. Um, I also think that, this is a team that obviously, like, they do thrive in a bubble environment. So if they can just reach the playoffs, I think they do have a shot to try and go back to the finals. Because once again, I believe the playoffs will be held in a bubble again. And there was something you said earlier about how, a lot of their bench guys are not producing well. I think the Heat really need some type of third star, whether that's maybe an Oladipo or a Bradley Beal or somebody like that. But the only issue with that is that they're not willing to give up the necessary pieces to get those players. They could have gotten Harden. They had one of the best trade offers for Harden in general. But they didn't want to give up Duncan Robinson and Tyler Hero, which is understandable. But at the same time, it's James Harden. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, there's so many Heat fans, as well as even the GM, think that Hero Robinson and Precious Achua together is too much of a package already for Bradley Beal. I think that's ridiculous. I think that they're really overvaluing their own players. I get it. I get that that's kind of their young core right now, but Duncan Robinson is like 27. He's not exactly really young right now. Tyler Hero, he's fresh off a decent freshman season, but how long is he going to take to develop into the player that Bradley Beal or James Harden is right now? I think the Heat are maybe trying to wait for Kawhi Leonard to become available, hopefully in free agency for them. I think, I don't think their issues are fixable this season unless they really trade for somebody like Bradley Beal or somebody else. I think a lot of their issues will be fixed in the offseason when maybe they could go after Oladipo and Kawhi Leonard. I do believe Andre Iguodala comes off the books then. So if they kind of give Andre Iguodala's contract to Oladipo, I think he would take a little bit of a pay cut like that, which is about $15 million. I do think he would take a little bit of a pay cut because there's just been rumors running rampant that Oladipo just really wants to go to Miami. He's been pushing for it. He turned down $25 million a year with Indiana, and that's why they traded him. that's why they shipped him. So, if he really does want to go to Miami, he's going to have to take a pay cut, I think. I don't think they're going to give him a full max. But then again, the Heat are liable to give out bad contracts. They gave, obviously, Myers Leonard that big deal for basically no reason. They gave Iguodala a big extension also for potentially no reason. Even after they didn't really see him play, they just straight up gave him the extension before they even really saw him play. which is a little ridiculous. Yeah, the Heat are prone to bad contracts. Tyler Johnson, I can name another one right there. So it's going to be up in the air. They're definitely going to be pursuing Kawhi Leonard in the offseason. And so I do agree with, some of their issues are fixable, just by coaching and discipline. And also probably by coming back from the COVID and being fully healthy. But, I also agree with you in the fact that, now the Nets are in the East and now the Nets are now that they have Harden, I don't see the Heat team making it back to the finals at all. They'd have to wait till next year, maybe grab Kawhi Leonard or Victor Oladipo, somehow just snag one of those two, and then they would be okay. But until then, yeah, I don't see the Heat doing anything right now. And I think that, if they didn't overvalue their players a little bit, I think they'd be in a little bit of a better position.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you on that statement with them overvaluing their players, because I've seen every time you hear any Heat discussion or anyone in like the comments of any Heat post, we can never get rid of Hero, we can never get rid of Duncan Robinson. It's like, for me, I would let go of Hero for Bradley Beal, because like you said, Bradley Beal is already an established player. We already know the dude's a bucket. He leads the NBA in scoring right now. Tyler Hero, I like him. He's a solid player, but he's not Bradley Beal. Yeah, for me, I'd rather let go of Hero than Robinson, which just seems kind of crazy. But Robinson's already kind of getting in the thick of it and about to get into his prime more so. So this is kind of like the player we know he's going to be. Like you said, he is like 26, 27 years old. He's a 3-and-D player. I kind of like that. I mean, I feel like that could always, fit on any kind of team. So I would be okay with them not wanting to ship him as much as Hero. Hero's young. With these young players, some of these young players, they play very well for the first few seasons, then just kind of trickle out, or they play very rough their first few seasons, then kind of improve. But Hero's already started out pretty well. It's interesting. It'll be interesting to see where he goes from here on out. But when you're trying to win a championship, you got to make some decisions, and you got to make some very crucial decisions. Pat Riley, if he wants to prove people wrong that, hey, this Heat team aren't overachievers, we're right where we need to be, and he feels like they need to make a trade as well. You got to really consider letting go of some of those pieces you claim that are untouchable, if you really want to get a championship. So it depends on just how much he really wants it.
Yeah, totally agree. And on that note, we are going to end this edition of the Speak Truth Sports Podcast. Once again, I've been Bert.
Trey, as always.
And I want to ask once again that you like and share and comment, rate the video, everything, help support us. You can find us on just about any social media at Speak Truth Sports. And yeah, that's about it. So we will see you all next time.